Atomic Blonde is a new spy action film directed by David Leitch and starring Charlize Theron. And it is a really hard-hitting action movie, but some of the story aspects are a bit of a letdown. So I went into this film with high expectations because I, love action movies, and I really enjoy John Wick, which was co-directed by David Leitch. And Charlize Theron is one of my favorite actresses. And the trailers were pretty cool, although some of them they were before every movie I saw for the past couple of months, so they got a little old. But I was hoping this would be really good, and it is pretty good. Like, the action is, I think, definitely the best female-led action I've ever seen. And they do a lot of interesting things, but the basic story is full of kind of spy cliches. And I wish it would have been tightened up a little bit. But still, I had a lot of fun with this movie. And it's a great, I think, a movie to go and watch. So this movie is based on a graphic novel that I haven't read. I think it's The Coldest City. But it reminded me a little bit of this other series of comics that I really enjoyed called Velvet. But the idea is that Charlize Theron is a British spy, and she had a relationship with another British spy, and he gets killed in the beginning of the movie over this list that has the names of every spy and everything they've done, which is really goofy. But, that's a MacGuffin, and it could have been easily improved. But, the idea is that everyone wants this list, and they're all after it, and they have to kill each other or go after it. This is like during the Cold War, right before the Berlin Wall fell in 1989. And, some of the stuff is kind of cool with that, but one big thing they try to do with this in the 1980s, they really want to bring in the music aspect for the film, like link the music to every scene. And it's a little heavy-handed. Perhaps it's because I've seen two excellent movies use music recently, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 and Baby Driver. So when you see those movies, then you see Atomic Blonde, it pales in comparison. And it just feels like they didn't pick the songs that, okay, this song will be perfect for this scene, and this song will be perfect for that scene. There's more like they said, okay, what's some most popular songs in the late 1980s? Okay, well, let's find a place to throw that song in. It seems like that. And it's kind of a weird aspect where they can't decide whether the characters are listening to the music or it's just for the audience. Because there's multiple times where, they have earphones on or they're listening to music and that's like, the music is incorporated into the scene. But then there are also multiple other times where it's not. And it's the most noticeable one is when Charlize Theron is walking into a bar and she's like looking really cool and she has this loud music blaring, this 80s music. I can't remember what exactly the song was. But then she gets to the bar and greets the French agent, and then the music just stops. And then in the bar is just some low atmospheric jazz music. So it's like, huh? That's a little odd. And, there's a couple of sort of choices like that with the movie that could have been tightened up. If you wanted to do that, this music aspect of the film, it could have been tightened up a bit. My favorite aspect of the film, though, is definitely the fights. And the fights are really perfect. Because they're shot, multicam, but they're completely steady. Like, they just kind of set up the frame and then let the action take place. And you can see everything, and it's great. When you have, a crappy action flick, they use every camera trick they can to try to hide the action. And to see them actually do this stuff is just so enthralling and thrilling, and it's amazing. And I really like how they did it, too, because it's an interesting aspect of action films in the future, hopefully, that other movies follow. Because, Charlize Theron, she has, the atomic blonde, she has the long blonde hair, and when she's really putting everything into it, her hair is flying all about, and it obscures her face. So I know there are some scenes that had to have been done by a stunt woman, but you really couldn't tell, because, they didn't try to hide the stunt woman, they just had her hair kind of going over her face, and that would happen in the scene, no matter what. And that's a really interesting idea, but I noticed this once before in Captain America Civil War with Black Widow, where in the beginning of the movie, she was doing all these really cool things, and that, okay, that's not the actress doing them. Scarlett Johansson can't do that stuff. But the way they hid it was they had their hair flying about, so it looked like she was actually doing it. And it was an interesting idea that they hope they expand on, in other movies starring women, other action movies. Because you could do a lot of cool things where, with a man, and even if you have a guy that really looks like him, you can't feature any part of his face when he's doing action. If he is something that he can't do, you have to hide it. But with a woman, you can do some tricks with her hair that make a really interesting scene and actually work with, if you're going really into it, she hits really hard and everything, and it looks really impactful. And her hair, flinging about, makes the scene even more impactful, even though it's actually might be hiding things. And it's a really interesting idea. My biggest problem with this film is probably that the pacing is a little bit off, especially for the first half of the movie. It's more leaning heavily on the spy thriller and less on the action. There are a couple action scenes, and they're cool scenes, but it feels a little like it's paced oddly. And I think the big reason for that is the non-linear structure of the film. Because they have this framing device of Charlize Theron, at the end of everything that happened, she's giving an interview to her superiors about what happened. And, it slows down the film every time it does it, and it shows you that it loses the impact for, Charlize Theron can't die. And also screws a bit with one of the greatest parts of the film, but I love the film where, again, an action star, if you're a person, you're going to get the shit kicked out of you, even in these scenes. And, as progression throughout the film, she's getting more and more beat up. John Wick and 1 and 2 and The Raid 1 and 2 did the same sort of thing where they're progressing throughout all these fights and they get more and more beat up, and it feels real. It feels like it's a real progression. And Atomic Blonde does that really well, but it's kind of screwed up when in the beginning of the movie you have already seen her all beat up. It loses some of the impact. And the interrogation scenes are way too slow, and they don't really provide anything interesting. The only thing reason I see them for existing is that they set up a twist near the end. And you can still do that twist, just have a shorter interrogation scene towards the end of the movie. And, that's, there's there are two things I would change about this film that are really simple, and you really don't even have to add anything to the movie. You just have to remove stuff, essentially. And, first, again, that would be to completely get rid of the non-linear structure and the interrogation scene, the jumping back and forth, that framing structure, the framing device. And, if you really wanted to have that thing, even the first John Wick, and a lot of other films, they have the kind of spoil the climax of the movie by having the very first scene being in the future. Then they do a flashback, and the whole movie's a flashback. And if you want to use that sort of device, you can still do that with her in the tub of ice. It's I wouldn't love that, but they can still do that. But just avoid all the interrogation scenes, except have one shorter one at the end. And you can still set up the twist there. And I really think those scenes just don't add anything to the movie. They only detract. You're already in the first part having to be a little slow when you set up the whole spy stuff. Then when you also have to set up the interrogation scenes, it just drags the film down. The other thing I would change is the list. And that's the MacGuffin that everyone's after. But, movies have that, especially spy films, and they're usually fine. But this one doesn't make any sense if you take a minute to think about it. because this is a Russian spy agent, a spyglass, who has information on everyone, on every spy from every government agency, and he has it memorized, and he has it in a list in his watch. How did he get this stuff? How did he get this information? They never once try to explain it. They also never try to explain why he's defecting. And it's weird. Like, how did he get the spy information from everybody? And it'd be so easy to fix. All he'd have to do is say that he's a Russian agent, and he made a list of all the Russian spy agents and everything they've done. And everything else could still work out the same, because the Russians wouldn't want anyone else to get their hands on it. And, they want to do everything they could to get it back so people wouldn't know all the spies. And the other countries spy agencies would all want that list so they could know who the Russian spies are. It'd still be the same thing, same idea. And you can even have, the twist where the British intelligences have a spy, a double agent in their ranks, a traitor. And you can still have that because the Russians would have a list, would know the traitor. So everything would still work. And it's just so odd that you don't have to change much. It's like a dialogue scene or two, and everything else could still be the same. This is a really good movie at times. I just wish that it could have been tightened up a bit to really improve it. It's good, but it's not great. I had a lot of fun with this film, and the action scenes were great, and the character is pretty cool. And there's a lot of stuff with James McAvoy that's pretty cool. His character is interesting, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on with him. And they also have some cool scenes with Sofia Boutella and Charlize Theron, and there's some cool, beautiful scenes in there, to say the least. And I loved a lot of the aspects of the film. It's just, I need it to be tighter. And I don't know what, it seems like it could have been easy to fix, but, whatever happened, that it came out, it's not perfect. But it's still a really good film that I would recommend. Especially if you really enjoy action films, I think you really enjoy this movie. It's bloody, but it's not quite as bloody as John Wick, although there are scenes that are bad. One thing I noticed, too, with the whole, the style over substance, and there's a little bit of that, but some of the style is cool. And, the whole movie is just a little tighter with the music, especially. There's one scene where, one of the best action scenes, in a stairwell, it's a really long scene, where the music completely stops. And I get the idea of it because it makes it more impactful, but during the scene, with every other fight scene that's had music, it almost feels like a different movie at times. And, I think I'll probably give it an 8 out of 10. Because, it's a good film, and I think that I'll probably be buying it when it comes out on Blu-ray, and I'll be rewatching it again. But I didn't love it. But thanks for watching, and you can check out other reviews of mine around my head, or subscribe to me over here. Thanks.